Hi everybody, I'm James Orr. Today we're going to talk about Cyber GRC. Let's dive in. Cyber governance, risk and compliance. What does it mean for you and your business? Let's have a look. When you think about cyber governance, risk and compliance, what it's really concerned with at the core is establishing a culture of cyber resilience and a governance framework which supports that culture in your organisation. It's essential for leaders, not just technical teams. Let's get into some of the key things that you need to consider if you're establishing your GRC practice today. You want to look at your particular circumstances, your regulatory and potentially legislative obligations. Incorporating that into your practice, your process, your framework is really going to establish that baseline for your business and your particular cyber GRC. You also want to consider things like data, the data you hold, the data you transact, where it's stored, how it's stored, and equally, as an extension, thinking then also too about your supply chain, your digital supply chain, with software as a service, infrastructure as a service, managed service providers, managed security service providers becoming part of your value chain. Their cyber resilience capabilities and how they're managing your data directly affect your business and your responsibilities around how you're managing the data. At the end of the day, you can't pass the buck. You're responsible. Even though you may have third parties involved, it's critical that you understand how they're managing it and they've got the correct or reasonable practices in place that support your cyber posture. Equally, we want to think about things like training and awareness. Training and awareness really builds in cyber culture. It helps reinforce it, keeps it top of mind, and the threat landscape is constantly evolving. So it's not something that's going to remain static. So we want to continue to inform and educate our teams and people on the emerging threats so that they can keep an eye, as people are often our last line of defense. It really establishes that cadence, that skill set, that ability to best protect your organization as things come through. So training and awareness is key. Essentially, in a good cyber GRC setup, you really should have a thorough incident response plan. Obviously, this may fall apart of your larger business continuity plans, but an incident response plan that's been finely tuned to think about the types of impacts that may affect you is always a case of approaching it where cyber incidents will be a when, not if proposition. So preparing yourself and having an incident response plan that's been written to be worked through and tested, regularly tested, should be form a part of your cyber GRC practice. Now you might think, great, these are all activities. How do they actually translate to a benefit? Well, here's some key things you need to consider and should be some really important motivations in helping you want to drive and adopt cyber GRC in your business. With brand reputation on the line, customer trust is one of the most central points of transacting. In a competitive environment, if you can signal that you're a quality organisation, that you take your customers' data seriously, and that you're to be trusted, they can then entrust you. And it can position you strongly in a competitive environment. So protecting your brand reputation and maintaining customer trust is really at the core. And that's a big part of what Cyber GRC can help drive in your business. You can also help defend against financial losses. So when you think about financial losses, not necessarily always related to an incident, but you don't have to look too far at recent court action by ASIC to think about the types of financial repercussions that may come if you haven't adequately prepared reasonably in your circumstances. So Cyber GRC will help establish a baseline, a framework, and a reputation of the efforts and actions that you've put into place in your organisation and establishing that demonstrated action within your business. So it's really critical that that comes out, and that's a big benefit when you consider Cyber GRC. The other is that security is not just isolated to the technical. So when you create a culture of cyber resilience, it builds that ability into your people to critically analyze. So that critical analysis, that ability for people to skillfully look at what's being presented to them and make not just subjective or repetitious reactions to these things, but think about them. Think about how they're going to respond rather than react. This can help across all your business. It's a really core skill, and Cyber GRC cyber skills really help drive and enforce it. So do not wait for an incident to happen. Act today. Cyber GRC is for every business. There's an accessible place, policy, a start point that you can start with today. Don't let the complexity of what might be a significant issue facing businesses today prevent you from getting started. One foot after the other. Cyber GRC can be adopted by every organisation, and if you need help, happy to help and reach out. Thanks for joining me. We'll speak to you soon.